Okay, uh, what this video goes over is how to use this simulation model to analyze your different shotgun groupings, configurations, and to see what the impact of those are on your golf course. So when you first get the model, you're going to open it up and you're going to see these warnings up here because you're downloading a file that I sent you. And you've got, if you want to use it, you're going to have to say enable editing. And then also this button here is running a little bit of code, Visual Basic code. So for this to work, you've got to enable content. And now it's ready to use. The worksheet has several input sheets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an output. So we'll just work our way through what you are supposed to do to use this. First thing, you got to say, when do you want the shotgun to start? It can be groups of 4. You can have anywhere from 9 to 36 groups you put on the course. And then how many trials you want to run. This can be up to 28. I'll just put it at 28. I'll show you what that means. It can be as little as 1. It's just how many times, different configurations do you want to try to run. So don't hit that button until you're ready to go, because once you hit that button, it takes about a minute or so for the model to run. The next thing you've got to put in is your course. So how this works, this is the easy part. First of all, you've got to put in your par and the yardage of that hole. You can't have different groups playing different tee boxes. So I would put in the biggest one and then put in the small ones and look at the differences, and that's how you would ballpark that. You can't put one group that's 250 yards out and another group that's 300 yards. They got to play from the same tee box the way it's set up. Then, based on the course or the whole design, you have to put in how far the group in front of them have to be out of the way until the group can hit off the tee box. So that's what this first gate is. So the way to interpret this is that a group has to be 250 yards away before the group behind them can hit off the tee box. That's really a function of the course design. These are not supposed to be a function of golfer ability. It's just that maybe it's a dog leg or there's a creek, or you would just never ever try to hit it more than 250 yards off the tee. So you change whatever numbers these are. If you think that the hole is reachable, like that one, if it's reachable, you could certainly put it at 286 or anything over that. Whoops, that's wrong. And then that would essentially say that the group behind them or the group on the tee will wait until the group is off the green. So you'll see a lot of waiting occurring if you do this, provided that group can reach it. And we'll show you how you set the golfer ability in a minute, but this is like the course ability. If you notice, you've always got to have 2 numbers for par 5s, 1 number for par 4s, and no one for par 3s. If it's a par 3, just leave it blank. Just put in that number, and then this formula bar, these here that are grayed out, don't change those. That's a formula underneath it. If it's a breachable par 5, you could make this number maybe 300 and this one 200, and then you just made a par 5 that's reachable. So that probably means the group in the fairway will have to wait for the group to get off of the green if that is doable. But I'm going to leave it as is. Again, you can change this. 18 certainly impacts some of the analysis that you get, the data that you gave me. So this I've probably not used that much. I just avoid it. But really what happens is that if I got these regression equations, these would be inputs that would go against the coefficients that show up here. Some of them are blank, but I probably wouldn't mess with this too much. I'd probably just leave, for right now, just leave these as is. But you can play with them. You could see certainly for more advanced analysis, green speed should impact how long it takes to putt. The rough height should impact how fast people move through the course because they can lose golf balls. Fairway width, if it's narrow, they should move slower than if it's wider. So there's things that's what the intent of this is. I do use that on my other analysis when I'm working with the USGA. I don't know if I would use it if I were you. I don't know if we have enough time studies for these regression equations to be useful, because you can see it's fairly sparse. Okay, So that's the second input. You've got to put in, really, that's focus on those rows 2 through 11. The next one is the type of golfers you've got. Right now, this is my long golfers or people who hit at 250 yards. If I was wanting to show golfers that could hit at 350 yard, that's what I would put. And an average, put that. Maybe short, that. Again, you choose what these are. You have to choose also these numbers. I'll leave it as what I had before, where the long hitters are the people can hit it up to 250. You can change these numbers. So back to this, even if that was set at 300, the group would never ever be able to hit it that far. So because of this, so if that's true, then it doesn't really make any difference. This is going to limit before this does. So you got two places that you can limit or decide how far a group has to be out in front before the next group hits. So you set these numbers, and then I'm going to hit the function key 9. You can see these numbers here change. See how these numbers are changing? So this tells me this grouping. These are some good golfers and some average golfers. There's more average golfers. So you can control this. You can actually type in the number you want. You don't have to do that. I wouldn't do that, but you could. Same thing on these. This will randomly generate long hitters or short hitters. And also, this is probably the most important thing. What are your golfers faster or slow? So if you think the golfers are going to be faster early on, your first group, the group on 1, if you think they're going to be faster, you can set this number less than 1. 1 is kind of the middle, where they're just the average. So these are about 5% faster than typical. So I've got the first 3 groups set up to be faster, and then the next 4 groups to be in the middle, and then the last groups to be kind of slow. You can change that number. And all it does is when it generates a time it takes to do something, it will either make it a little bit less or a little bit more based on what number's there. You can leave those, and if you go far enough down here, you can see it's random. But I went ahead and hard-coded the ones at the front because that's what you told me. Okay, so that's a third input. This one you put in the time and how many trials or different configurations. This one you talk about the course. This is where you put in your golfers. Now you get into the different configurations. So in this case, I've got 28 different configurations. 28 different configurations. So the very first one is I got the first group on 1, the second group on 18, the third group on 17, all the way to the last group on 10. I got a total of 10 groups, which is the formula. So you decide what that is. You've got to use some common sense when you set these up, where anytime you put a group on here, they have to be, the preceding group has to be in front of them. So I couldn't put 2. If I put 2, that doesn't make sense. That means the group in front of them is this one. Unless those 2 are the only 2 on the golf course, then what would be the point of the analysis? So use some common sense that these numbers, and how you check that is that these should always be -1. Just saying which is the group relative is in front of them. So group 4, the group in front of them is group 3. That's how this works. Okay, you choose. Again, you can look, if you see what I've done, I've got this particular configuration happens 5 times, and then starting in this one, I put 2 on group on 18, hole 18, and then work my way down. These don't change. Then, just being silly, I put 3 groups on 18, working my way down. This one I put 4 groups, which is, I don't even know why I did that, I'm just playing. And then starting here, I put 3 on 1, 2 on 18. Again, you can change whatever of these configurations. And keep in mind, you can put up to 36 groups. So these last 3 are just to show you that I could put 18 groups where I got the first one on 1, and then there's an 18 all the way down to 2. So these configurations have 18 groups. Everyone's on a hole. You could add more. You could do something like all the way down where you've got the whole thing loaded up if that's what you wanted to do. Okay, So you've got those. That's your next input. This then is based on some time studies. These are regression coefficients. I wouldn't mess with them, but we can have that discussion later. But these basically, if I've got a group of 3 or 4, it's going to take about 3 minutes for them to get off the tee box, is what that's saying. But there's some random error, and so sometimes it takes more, sometimes less. On the green, it takes about 3 minutes. You can see it's not a function of golfers. It should be, but that's not what I have. And then there's a lot of randomness. Sometimes it takes a lot less. Sometimes it takes a lot more to get off the green. And then these are fairway rates measured in yards per minute. So par 3s take 54 yards per minute. Par 4s and 5s take more. These are old time studies, but that's what these numbers are from. And then to go to the next hole, there's some just regular, about 80 yards a minute, but there's some little bit of variability around that. Okay, you put in all those numbers, you put in these different configurations, you go back here and you hit simulate, cross your fingers, and it takes about a minute to run. Once it runs, it will come to this output worksheet. So let's focus on what this is. Probably the most important thing is this table. So what is that table giving me? It's telling me how long the average round was. It's not the shortest, it's not the max, it's the average. The average weighting per group, again, some groups weight more or less, but that's what the average weighting. And then what you ask for is how long does it take for them to get through group hole 1? To get through, and it's probably what you meant was tee box, but this is actually showing to get completely through hole 1. And you want it by 10:30, so it looks like these numbers would be good ones. But however, the last column shows you how long it takes to finish the round for the last group to be done. And so you can see that even if you do things like this to get through hole number 1 fast, you're still, the total for the last group to finish is sometimes up to, it looks like 30 minutes more than this configuration. So there's give and take. It's how you want to set this up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run the model. We've changed all this stuff. I've modified it slightly. I'm running 28, so I'm going to hit simulate. Again, the model's going to run. The more iterations you want to run, this is the max, but the larger you set that, the longer it takes to run. It'll probably take a minute or so, depending on how fast your machine is. It's running those different configurations a whole bunch of different rounds. So we're getting summary stats. Rather than looking at one specific day, it's like we're running a season or a year's worth of data. And it's this whole file, obviously there's all kinds of stuff I'm not talking about that exists in there, but it's moving, it's taken there. So there you go. It's run the model. It's updated the numbers. These are just pictures of this table, so that's what these graphs are. I'm looking at round length on how long it takes to play. You can see these configurations here take longer to play. They finish later in the day. But if your goal is to get through the first hole by a certain time, those might be what you need to do. So those configurations that are in this world of getting done around 10:30 is configuration 11. So what was that one? That was when we put 3 groups on 18. I don't know if that's a good idea. That feels wrong. But we're getting people closer to 1 faster. And because it's a par 3, and then it's a par 5, you're basically able to load up this hole a lot, as opposed to, so you're just basically jamming this hole in. Now that means there's weighting that's occurring, but that's what's happening. If that wasn't a par 5, you probably wouldn't get that benefit, but it is a par 5. So that's what happens, is that you can probably get people out through hole 1 a little faster, but the consequence is that there's a lot of weighting on hole 18, a lot of weighting, and the total impact on the total round makes it bigger, even if you can get people through the first hole a little faster. Okay, so that's the model. Use it as you see fit. Change it. Do your analysis. You can change any course. You can change the type of golfers. You can certainly change different configurations. This is probably the weakest part for recreational golfers right now because the time studies don't exist to validate these. That's an interesting thing that anyway, there you go, and good luck. Thanks.